Boss: Do you believe in life after death? Employee: Certainly not. There is no proof of it. Boss: Well, there is now. After you left early yesterday to go to your uncle's funeral, he came here looking for you. A married couple in their 60s are visited by a fairy who grants them both a wish. I want to travel around the world with my darling husband, says wife. 2 tickets for a luxury cruise magically appear in her hand. Husband says, Sorry, but my wish is to have a wife 30 years younger than me. Fairy waves wand and husband becomes 92. The pretty teacher was worried about little Johnny's grades. After class, she pulled him aside and asked, Johnny, why has your schoolwork been so poor lately? Johnny sighed and said, I'm in love. Trying not to laugh, she asked, With whom? With you, Johnny said. She smiled gently and said, But Johnny, don't you see how silly that is? I'd like a husband of my own someday, yes, but I don't want a child. Johnny grinned. Don't worry, miss. I'll use a rubber. Paddy McCoy, an elderly Irish farmer, received a letter from the Department for Work and Pensions stating that they suspected he was not paying his employees the statutory minimum wage, and they would send an inspector to interview them. On the appointed day, the inspector turned up. Tell me about your staff, he asked Paddy. Well, said Paddy, there's the farm hand. I pay him £240 a week, and he has a free cottage. Then there's the housekeeper. She gets £190 a week, along with free board and lodging. There's also the half-wit. He works a 16-hour day, does 90% of the work, earns about £25 a week along with a bottle of whiskey, and, as a special treat, occasionally gets to sleep with my wife. That's disgraceful, said the inspector. I need to interview the half-wit. That'll be me, then, said Paddy. So was at a bar last night and saw this fat chick wearing a shirt that said, Caution, I'm a Maine-eater. I walked up to the girl and timidly said, Excuse me, miss, about your shirt. She interrupted me before I could continue and furiously shouted, Oh, let me guess, you're here to make a comment about how I'm so fat and how I actually eat men. I can't help my weight, you know. I have feelings, too, and your comments can really hurt. I looked at her confused and said, That's actually not what I was going to say at all. Oh, she replied as a smile started to come across her face. What were you going to say? That's not how you spell manatee. A man opened a new restaurant but couldn't decide on a name. He decided he'd name it after the third person who walked in. The third customer came in and he asked her name. She said, Jill. He replied, Well, Jill, you have great legs, and decided to name the place Jill's Legs. A week later, a man was sitting outside on the sidewalk. A police officer asked, What are you doing? He said, Waiting for Jill's legs to open so I can get something to eat. An elderly woman rode into town and tied her mule outside the saloon. She was brushing the trail dust off her clothes when a cocky young cowboy swaggered out, swaying a bit from whiskey, a revolver spinning in his hand. He smirked. Hey, Granny, ever done a little dancing? She answered evenly, No, can't say I have. The cowboy grinned. Well, today's your lucky day? He started firing shots at the ground near her boots, and she hopped around to avoid getting her toes blown off. The onlookers roared with laughter. When his last shot rang out, the cowboy spun his gun back into the holster and strutted away. The woman quietly walked to her mule, reached into a saddlebag, and pulled out a double-barreled shotgun. Click, click. The sound froze the whole street. The cowboy stopped cold and turned slowly. In a steady voice, she asked, Son, you ever kissed a mule's backside? He gulped. No, ma'am, but I reckon today's my lucky day, too. A cop waited outside a popular pub hoping to nab a drunk driver. At closing time, as everyone came out, he spotted his potential quarry. The man was so obviously inebriated that he could barely walk. He stumbled around the parking lot for a few minutes looking for his car. After trying his keys on 5 others, he finally found his own vehicle. He sat in the car a good 10 minutes as the other pub patrons left. He turned his lights on, then off. He started to pull forward into the grass, then stopped. Finally, when his was the last car, he pulled out onto the road and started to drive away. The cop, waiting for this, turned on his lights and pulled the man over. He administered the breathalyzer test and, to his great surprise, the man easily passed. The cop was dumbfounded. "This equipment must be broken," exclaimed the policeman. "I doubt it," said the man. "Tonight I'm the DD, designated decoy." Jennifer's wedding was fast approaching, and her mom had found the perfect mother-of-the-bride dress. Then, disaster struck. Jennifer learned her dad's much younger new wife had bought the exact same dress. Jennifer begged her to exchange it. The stepmom refused. "Absolutely not. I look like $1 million in this dress, and I'm wearing it." When Jennifer told her mom, she just smiled. "Never mind, sweetheart. I'll get another dress. It's your special day." A few days later, they found an even more beautiful gown. Over lunch, Jennifer asked, "Aren't you going to return the first dress? When will you ever wear it?" Her mom grinned. "Oh, I'll wear it to the rehearsal dinner the night before the wedding." A man in a hot air balloon realized he was lost. He reduced altitude and spotted a woman below. He descended a bit more and shouted, "Excuse me, can you help me? I promised a friend I would meet him an hour ago, but I don't know where I am." The woman below replied, "You are in a hot air balloon hovering approximately 30 feet above the ground. You are between 40 and 41 degrees north latitude and between 59 and 60 degrees west longitude." "You must be a programmer," said the balloonist. "I am," replied the woman. "How did you know?" "Well," answered the balloonist, "everything you told me is technically correct, but I have no idea what to make of your information, and the fact is, I am still lost. Frankly, you've not been much help so far." The woman below responded, "You must be a manager?" "I am," replied the balloonist. "But how did you know?" "Well," said the woman, "you don't know where you are or where you are going. You have risen to where you are due to a large quantity of hot air. You made a promise which you have no idea how to keep, and you expect me to solve your problem. The fact is, you are in exactly the same position you were in before we met, but now somehow it's my fault." A couple was playing golf at a super exclusive course surrounded by $1-million homes. At the third tee, the husband warned, "Honey, be careful with your drive. Don't break any windows. Fixing them will cost a fortune." Well, she teed up and shanked the ball right through the biggest house's window. The husband groaned, "I told you! Let's go apologize and find out the damage." They knocked on the door, and a man invited them in. The place was a mess. Broken glass everywhere, a tipped-over bottle in the foyer. The man said, "Are you the ones who broke my window?" "Yes, sorry about that," the husband replied. "No, thank you," said the man. "I'm a genie trapped in that bottle for 1,000 years. You freed me, so I'll grant each of you one wish, and I get the last one." The husband said, "I want $1 million a year for life." "Done." The genie turned to the wife. "Your wish?" "A house in every country in the world." "Consider it done." Then the genie asked, "And my wish?" The husband looked at his wife and shrugged. "Well, we got money and houses. I guess it's okay." The genie took the wife upstairs and spent 2 hours with her. Afterward, he turned to her and said, "How old is your husband anyway?" 35. And he still believes in genies? That's amazing. A lady failed the written driving test 4 times. At the 5th attempt, she was determined to pass, but the test had the same question: you are driving at 100 kilometers per hour. On your right is a wall, on your left is a cliff. On the road you see an old man and a young man. What will you hit? The woman walked up to the examiner and said, "I've answered this question all 4 ways, wall, cliff, old man, and young man, yet I failed all 4 times. How is this possible? What am I supposed to hit?" The examiner replied, "The brakes." I got a call today from a very polite young man with a thick accent. "Hello, sir. How are you today?" "I'm very well, thank you. But more importantly, who are you?" "Sir, my name is Sanjeet, and I'm calling you from Microsoft." "Microsoft? Is that a city in Pakistan? How's the weather?" "No, sir, Microsoft, the computer company. I'm calling because we have detected a serious problem with your computer." "Oh dear, that's very concerning." "Yes, sir, but don't worry. I can fix it for you right now." "No, I meant it's concerning because I don't have a computer." A pause. Maybe it's your laptop, sir?" "Don't have one." "Tablet?" "Nope." "iPad?" "Nope. In fact, I don't even have a telephone." Long silence. Finally, he says, "Sir, now you are lying to me." I said, "Well, you started it." And I hung up. An old lady, late for afternoon bingo, was driving 65 in a 40-mile-per-hour zone when a cop pulled her over. "Ma'am, may I see your license?" he asked. She calmly replied, "Sorry, officer, I had it revoked 2 years ago for drunk driving." The officer frowned. "Then can I see your registration?" She said, "I stole this car, and the owner is in the trunk." File attachment. The officer shouted, "Ma'am, don't move!" and called for backup. Minutes later, the chief of police arrived with half the squad. "Ma'am, may I see your license?" the chief demanded. "Of course, officer." She smiled sweetly and handed it over. It was perfectly valid. "Can I see the registration?" he pressed. She reached into the glove box and produced it, also legitimate. Finally, the chief ordered the trunk opened, and it was completely empty. The woman turned, wagged her finger at the first cop, and said, "And I'll bet that darn liar told you I was speeding too." A man was getting a haircut before his trip to Rome. He mentioned his upcoming travels, and the barber said, "Rome? Why would you want to go there? It's crowded and dirty. You're making a mistake. How are you even getting there?" "We're flying with American Airlines," the man replied. "We got a great deal." "American Airlines," the barber said, shaking his head. "That airline. Their planes are old, the flight attendants aren't great, and they're always late. So, where are you staying?" "We're at the International Marriott downtown." "Oh, that place is terrible. Small rooms, bad service, and it's way overpriced. So what's your plan once you're there?" "We're going to visit the Vatican and hopefully get a chance to see the Pope." "Good luck with that," the barber laughed. "You'll be stuck at the back of St. Peter's Square, and from there, the Pope will look like an ant. You're in for a tough time." A month later, the man came back for his regular haircut. The barber asked, "So how was Rome?" "It was amazing," the man replied. "Not only did we fly on one of American Airlines' brand new planes, but it was overbooked, so they bumped us to first class. The food was delicious, and I had the most amazing flight attendants. And the hotel? They had just done a $25 million renovation, and it's now the best place in the city. They were overbooked, too, so they gave us the presidential suite at no extra charge." "Well, I'm sure you didn't get to meet the Pope," the barber muttered. "Actually, I did," the man said with a smile. As we were touring the Vatican, a guard tapped me on the shoulder and said the Pope likes to meet certain visitors. He invited me into a private room, and 5 minutes later, the Pope walked in, shook my hand, and I even got to kneel down as he spoke with me. "Wow, really?" asked the barber. "What did he say?" The man grinned and replied, "He said, 'Son, I've visited many countries, met countless people, and waved to millions from my balcony. But you must have the worst barber in the world.'" One sunny morning, a man came back to the cabin after hours of fishing and decided to take a nap. His wife, enjoying the peace, thought she'd take the boat out, not to fish, just to relax, float, and read her book in the sunshine. She dropped the anchor a short distance from shore and opened her novel. Enter the Lake Patrol Officer. He pulled up beside her boat and said, "Good morning, ma'am. Can I ask what you're doing out here?" "Reading," she said, without looking up. He raised an eyebrow. "Well, this area is off limits for fishing." "I'm not fishing." "I'm reading." "Yes, but you've got a fishing rod, a tackle box, and bait. You could be fishing at any moment." She looked up calmly and replied, "If that's how we're playing this, then if you don't leave, I'll have to report you for harassment." He blinked. "I haven't even touched you." She smiled. "True. But you could. At any moment," he left. Quickly.